Another ToolShed podcast. I'm very, very excited about this particular conversation ever since I found out about the guest that I've got on this episode. I've been very excited because I cannot tell you how many conversations we've had in relation to my body's giving up. I can't do the site work anymore. And it creates a whole lot of stress, not to mention the physical pain. Like the physical pain's bad enough, but just not being able to do what you want to do is a major event for many tradies, many builders. And I think for the most part, it just doesn't have to happen. And the real cool thing is in the ToolShed this month, it's Health and Wellness Month. So it's just a perfect conversation to have. And so what I would like to do is introduce you to my very special guest, Anthony Lett. He has an amazing business called Stretch Fit. I'm going to get him to tell you about Stretch Fit as we go along. But welcome to the ToolShed, Anthony. How are you going?
Thanks. Good, Mick. Thanks for inviting me on, and hopefully I can, be useful to the people out there listening.
Yeah. Just need you to make sure you stay nice and close to the to the good old phone, because it's just dropping in and out a little bit. But we'll do our very best. So
sure.
What I'd really like to understand firstly is just how you got into this. Like what caused you to get into this? Because it's a very, very niche area. There's all sorts of different fitness. This is particularly about stretching. What happened to get you involved in this?
Sure. Well, look, I'll try not to make it too long-winded. I could go back a long way, but I guess, to go back, so say 35 years, I was young, and really stiff. I wasn't a tradie. I was a tennis coach, but I knew I was really stiff and sore, and I knew that I needed to stretch. And even now it's hard to find somewhere to stretch, but back then it was even more difficult. And I remember this was in Melbourne, going to a sports medicine clinic and saying to them, look, just give me a stretching program. I know that's what I need. I don't need to come all the time weekly for regular treatments. I'm just stiff and sore, and I know that stretching would help me. And they said, oh, look, we don't do that. Here's one stretch you can do. And I thought, well, that's a bit useless, one stretch. And following that, I sort of tried yoga, and it wasn't really my thing for various reasons that we can go into if you want later. And then I did Pilates, which was good, but, again, it wasn't specifically focused just on stretching. So over the years, I did a lot of study after that with various things, some physiotherapy, some anatomy, some massage therapy, some sports science, and sort of blended it all in to creating what now is called Stretch Fit. And I also designed this equipment so to make it much easier to stretch, because as a bloke lying on the floor trying to stretch I always found really difficult, and I know a lot of blokes do as well. So the Stretch Fit equipment really just simplifies the whole thing. It gives you something to hold on to, and it helps you to isolate different muscle groups, which is, a lot of the time blokes, when they're doing yoga or something, they're not quite sure where, not just blokes, but stiff people, where they should be feeling it or if they're doing it right, all those sorts of issues. With the equipment that we have, you isolate a bit like you do at the gym, where you isolate your biceps or your quads or your glutes or whatever. That's the same. We do the same sort of process, but we isolate each muscle group and stretch them. So it's pretty easy, and it's simple, and basically everyone can do it. So it works for me, and it works for a lot of people who are stiff and need something simple without all the dogma that you get when you do things like yoga.
One of the
So
things
yeah,
that I think is really important to talk about is the other benefits there, as far as the stress, and as far as chronic pain and other health benefits of what you
yeah,
do, because it's like, I know, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on chiropractic, but I mean, I've been going to a chiropractor for, I don't know, a dozen years. I go every week, and I've really dove deep into the how it works and what's behind it, and I've just found it so beneficial for health.
yeah,
And I think that, like, stretching is exactly the same thing. That it's like everyone understands that there are benefits to perhaps getting rid of a bit of muscle pain and things like that. But can you fill us in on some of the other benefits of stretching that many people probably aren't really aware of as far as it goes with health?
yes. And I think that's a really good question, because people tend to think of stretching as just a biomechanical process where you get a muscle and stretch it from one end to the other. And it is that, but it's a lot more than that as well. So, we know that when you stretch, you release a lot of endorphins and other pain killing or analgesic hormones. So it automatically makes you feel more relaxed and decreases pain. So we know that there's plenty of good studies on that now. We also know that stress, whether it's physical or psychological, increases muscle tension. And one of the ways to reverse that is to decrease muscle tension. It instantly makes you feel more relaxed, and just more able to cope with things. There's lots of studies that also showing that stretching increases, as I said, pain tolerance. It also decreases blood pressure, circulation of blood glucose, so improves things like long-term health benefits for diabetes. Um, so that's another benefit. And also there's I guess it's not really separate, but you can look at it separately as the mindfulness aspect, which is just being able to be quiet and be still and just be away from the sort of noise and rush and haste of daily life, which is what a lot of tradies comment on. That they don't always talk about it in class, but when you ask them, they say, "Oh, it's so good for my mind because I can slow down. I'm not stressed. The phone's not ringing. I'm not rushing around, and I'm just relaxing." And of course, when you're doing that, your heart rate is slowing down, your blood pressure's dropping, you're releasing all those feel-good chemicals, and all those other hormonal changes are happening as well. So there's that really important aspect of it, as well as just being able to touch your toes and so on.
So I noticed, on your website, and I know that you're in the studio now. You've only just finished teaching,
Yeah,
but you've got this wonderful looking equipment, all made out of timber. A lot of it too. I
yeah,
noticed. So
yeah.
a
It's
lot of
all
the
timber.
tradies would appreciate the craftsmanship that's gone into
Yeah,
creating the
yeah,
equipment. But
that's
um,
right.
do you need to turn up to a studio? I know that, like, when I've gone to the gym, I always prefer to do classes and be with people and all that. It
Yeah,
just gets me doing it. But there are some people who, freaks of nature, who are disciplined and will do it by themselves and
yes,
do it on a
preach.
regular
Yeah,
basis. So
that's right.
what tips have you got? How can people, because I know you're in Brisbane and there's people, watching it from, I can notice a couple of people from Queensland and Western Victoria watching.
Yeah,
There's people all over the place.
yeah.
How can you, is it simple enough to be able to get the really great benefits that you're talking about with some simple equipment that you might have at home and some guidance, I guess?
I think, look, it's not going to be as good. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered building the equipment. But I mean, sometimes I get people on social media say, "Oh, why would I bother coming to your stretch studio? I can do that at home." Well, my answer is, well, good, go for it then. But as you said, most people don't have the discipline, and most people don't enjoy stretching because it hurts, and so they won't do it at home. So the studio provides that sort of environment where you're booked in and you turn up, and people like that. But you can do it at home. I stretched at home without any equipment for 20 years, and it was certainly effective. And I have got some books that I've got out with just stretching on the floor where they're not yoga again, they're broken down. So you're stretching one muscle group at a time. And what I could do, I was just thinking about that before we went online, is, especially if people let you know, I've got a fair idea of what would be useful for most tradies, but if people want to make requests like I need a hamstring or I need my quad stretch or my hip flexors, I can put together some ebooks that you can give out to people with those stretches on there and the instructions on them, which will be basically cut and pasted from the book. So we could certainly put that together for people that wanted to use it.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the P word a little moment ago, pain, and
Pain. Yeah.
they're like I've gone to all sorts of different people over the years and stretching, and there seems
Yeah.
to be some differing opinions. And so, as far as I'm concerned, you're a stretch guru. Like you've been doing it for years and years and years. Some people say you stretch and it hurts. Other people say stop before it hurts. What's
Yeah.
the go here if people are doing it sort of unsupervised so they don't
Yeah.
injure themselves?
Yeah. Well, look, we always say, look, if 10 out of 10 were agony, it should be about 5 or 6. So you should be able to hold the stretch. You don't have to hold it for 5 minutes, but you should be able to. So if it's more than that, it's not, this is what people, I think, often I have people come in and say, no pain, no gain, isn't it? But that's not quite the case with stretching. There needs to be sufficient mechanical loading on your tissues to make them grow longer, which is what happens over time. But if there's too much, your body goes into a state really where it's starting to protect itself and becomes more tense. So you're really fighting against your own reflexes if you make the stretch too intense, um, as well as risking tearing something. So as a guide, I'd say if 10 out of 10 were really, really intense, stay at 5 or 6 and hold the stretch. Most people have got a timer on their phone now. Hold it for about 3 minutes. That's much more beneficial. And during that time, you find that your body relaxes and you can deepen it a bit as time goes on.
Yeah, so
And we always,
the time
yeah,
or the length of a stretch is obviously important. Like you see some
yeah,
athletes, and I'm sure that they've warmed up and done a whole lot of stretching before they come out onto the field or whatever. But you see them, grab their foot and do a bit of a quad
yeah.
stretch or something like that, and it lasts all of 3 seconds, and then they do the other one.
That's right. That's right. Now, what's important? Well, that's a good question too. So, it's not. It's what's important is the time under tension. And if
Right.
you're wanting to make long-term changes, the duration of the stretch is more important than the intensity. But if you, like, I was watching the grand final on the weekend, you see them in the changing room, they're bouncing around doing a few stretches, but they're not stretching to increase their range of movement there. They're doing a different type of stretching, which is a dynamic stretch, which is really just to improve circulation and joint fluid. So it's like, squirting some oil into the joints. It makes them more fluid and more flexible, but it doesn't really increase their range of movement. So to do that, you need long held stretches. They're much more effective and much safer.
Yep.
But again,
Yep.
you wouldn't do that before a game anyway because you become too relaxed. as I said, but it's true. You hold five stretches for about 3 minutes each. You'll feel like going to sleep, and that's a hormonal response of pain suppressing hormones, analgesics, and so on. That's not the ideal state to go into a competition in. You want to be fired up before a competition, so you do more aggressive bouncing type movements. Those sort of slow stretches to be done afterwards or the next day or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point there. Just that you become relaxed after it. So I'm just noticing we
Yeah,
got a bunch of viewers watching us live from the ToolShed app itself, and one of the guys was involved in a conversation with our black belt members this morning, Matt, and he
yeah,
said he's having trouble sleeping of late. Now we won't.
yeah.
Well, I was about to say we won't throw him under the bus, but we might as well because it's a lot of fun. Uh, he's trying to get off chocolate, and he's been off it for 3 days, and he wants to punch everybody and all of that sort of stuff. But I'm just wondering if
Yeah,
Matt or anybody is having trouble sleeping, would this be a good
yeah,
thing to do for
abs-
X amount
yeah,
of time before you go to bed?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I sound like well, I guess I am a bit of an evangelist for stretching, but I mean, if it doesn't do
I hope
everything, but
you are. You've built a business
I
around
am.
it.
I know, but I try to be measured. You know, some people say whatever it is that they're selling is great for everything, and it's 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 not a panacea, but definitely for insomnia, stretching is very good. As I said, because of the hormonal response, the release of things like serotonin and endorphins will definitely make you feel sleepy and relaxed. And people say that to me all the time when they come in. Oh, gee, I'm sleeping so much better. And
So,
it's,
do you do the course the classes in the mornings as well, or do you tend to do them all at
we
night?
do.
Or
No, well, I do. I teach them all the time because some people, can't come in or they're too tired at night, so they come in the morning, and that's okay too. If you feel a bit groggy afterwards, you can go and get. You just got to sort of psych yourself up again and have a coffee or something. But what I find after teaching 2 or 3 hours in the morning is I'm really sleepy. So um, I wouldn't advocate doing 2 or 3 hours if you've got to go and work straight after it. But an hour is okay. But a lot of the tradies come. We have these groups. I don't know if Scott told you that are called the stiffies, and
yeah,
they're just they're
where did they
me.
get that name from? The Stiffies.
So I came up with that. I don't know when, but our latest ad says, "Have you got the balls for it?" So, but those classes, there's a lot of tradies in that. There was one tonight who's a plasterer, and he's just his shoulders, his back, and he really loves this because he comes in, he does an hour of stretching, goes home, has a light meal, and he sleeps for 10, 12 hours. So,
Wow.
and I've got a builder who was here at 5 o'clock, exactly the same. He used to wake up every few hours with pain in the glute, and he comes once a week now for 18 months, and it's never recurred, and his life's completely changed because he's not waking up every 2 or 3 hours. That makes a huge difference to your well-being.
Yeah. Is there use proper language, will you?
I
are
don't know
there
what it is.
are there additional things, and I'm sort of thinking about some advice that the chiropractor gives me, that like there are certain things you can do in your life, that will cause the adjustment to last longer and have longer benefits between adjustments. Is there something similar with stretching? Is there things that we can do during the day that will continue to maintain the benefit of stretching? And I
Well,
guess what's the opposite of that as well?
yeah, look, I mean, well, there's a few things. I mean, first of all, you need to eat well because if you think about stretching, what you're doing is you're imposing a mechanical stress on your muscles. That's one aspect of it, a bit like weight training. And the adaptation occurs it's between sessions that your muscles grow a bit longer. Whereas, with gym work, between sessions, the muscles grow wider. So, but that doesn't happen if you don't eat well and if you don't get enough sleep. So they're pretty important. Um, but that's looking at things, I guess, in the long term. In the short term, acute phase, you obviously not getting stressed helps, because as soon as you get stressed or angry or worked up goes your muscle tension immediately. So, and I think stretching helps with that. It keeps you a bit more relaxed. It hopefully over time you can tune in a bit more to when your body's getting a bit more tense and agitated, and when you are, and you can use a bit of the mindfulness or the calmness or the breathing that you develop in your classes to calm yourself down a bit. That, I know that's getting a bit woo-woo, but it really does help to settle yourself down. And the other thing, I guess, is to try and do a bit more of it. So when you're finished or when you're at lunchtime, if you find a stretch that is good for you, do it again. And at the end of the day as well, the more that you do it to a certain extent, the better.
So, so trying to relax while you're doing a stretch is obviously
Really important.
beneficial. Have you got any suggestions about like potentially breathing, how and where to
Yeah,
breathe? Because I know when you breathe shallow and upper chest, it's like it creates a tension.
it
So,
does.
do you teach people how to breathe when you're doing a stretch as well?
Yeah, we do. We don't, you don't need to get too detailed about it, but really what we try and do is encourage them to relax their belly, because if you've got abdominal tension, like you just said, your diaphragm then can't descend. And so what happens is your breath becomes more shallow. And that's when, if you do that often enough, you start secreting stress hormones and you start again getting more tense. Your muscles become more tense, your blood pressure goes up, your blood glucose increases. So all those things happen. You can't control that. So the only way to control it really is with your breathing. So we try and get people to relax the belly, um, breathe and expand the belly. And what we talk about sort of 3 or 4 second inhalations, 3 or 4 second exhalations. And if you can keep to that timing, um, that's really beneficial. We have a little timer here that goes off every minute, just a bell that so you know how long you've been in the stretch. And what we try and do is get people to sort of keep their breath cycles to about 5, 6, or 7 between each bell. So that really helps them to slow down the breathing without focusing, too much on whether it's coming out of the mouth or the nostrils or which part of the body should be tight and which parts should be loose. Just loose abdominal expansion and slow breath cycles is a good way to get going.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some apps that you can see where you've got to try and, breathe in for the full length of sometimes they have something up on screen that expands as you breathe in, and then, those sorts of things to start with are good as well.
Yeah. So, you mentioned right at the start that you don't get as good a workout when you're at home using, chairs and lounges and pillows and tennis balls and whatever else that people use,
Yeah,
and you've
yeah,
designed specific equipment for that. And having a look on your online store and photos of your gym, it's pretty neat looking stuff. I'm assuming that a lot of it has to do with a bit of gravity and being able just to relax over a bit of equipment. Now, I
yeah,
don't know how well this will work, but I know you're on the phone, and I'm wondering
yeah,
whether whether it might work if you can pick the phone up and go over to some of the
yeah,
equipment and give us a bit of a
sure,
look around at the equipment.
yeah,
Something we don't normally do on
sure,
a podcast, but hang it,
yeah,
let's have a crack at
okay.
it.
All right, let's give it a try. And if you just guide me, if you can't see very well, I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Here we go, folks. We're going
So
live into the studio. Looks like a torture
can you
chamber.
see? Yeah, that's right. How's that?
Yep, that looks good. So we can see the uprights and the ladders, and it's got rings and
Yeah.
belts and stuff on it.
So this one here, I'll just show you, for example, if I stand on this, that's a calf, that's stretching my calves now. Okay, so there's not much I need to do there except just stand on it, and I get a
So we
pretty
can't see
decent
your feet
calf
there. You
stretch.
need to just angle the camera down. Oh, there we go. Yep. So it's angled
Yeah,
up, so your toes are higher than your heels.
yeah, exactly. And then if I just step on there, I don't need to do anything except just stay there for a couple of minutes. Or if I wanted to stretch my chest, see if I can show you.
This is going to be
So
difficult with the phone in your hand.
how's that? So if I hold that ring and lean forward,
Yeah.
now I'm stretching my pecs. Can you see that?
Yes. Yep.
If I was to turn my arm this way, say I'm moving my hand down, then
Yeah.
I'm stretching my shoulder and my biceps. So a
Yep.
lot of the guys, very tight through there. If I was to, I don't know if this will work, Nick, but we'll give it a go. Hang on 1 second. If I if I lie back on this,
Yes, I've seen a photo of this. So you're sort of curved over it, lying back
yeah,
like an
So
inverted bed. I was hoping you were going to put a cushion on it because I couldn't see that in the photos, and I thought laying on those wooden
yeah,
dowels that'd be a whole new exercise in pain. I would have thought.
that's right, yeah. So I'm just lying backwards. So that's stretching my spine,
Yeah,
and then if I'll just point it down. If I lie the other way, it stretches my lower back in the other direction.
so if you lie down on your belly, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you can also you can lie on on your side as well.
yeah.
Um, and then you can sit up on here. I'll just try and show you one more. A lot of the guys who are sore. Here, let's try this one. I'll show you how to stretch your quads if I can. Sorry, I know I'm jumping all over the place.
Need a cameraman.
I know. So I'm gonna try and slide myself down here.
Ah,
Can you
right.
see
Yep, I gotcha. There's
my
no
leg?
way I could do that.
Well, you'd be surprised. You won't be able to do it at first, but within about a month,
Yeah.
it takes time. I just said that to that plasterer tonight. He can't do that yet, but we modify things so that you can do everything. That's the whole point of the equipment, that you can modify things so that people can do it.
Yeah.
But in a month, he'll be able to do that, and he'll be a lot better.
So just in relation to which muscles to stretch, are there some muscles that are just kind of we all should start there? Or is it that they need to be assessed by someone like yourself and told where to start? What's the go there?
I'll just tip you back the other way. Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So look, the main muscle groups really are, the big muscles of the legs. So your hamstrings, quads, hip flexors. They're the ones pretty much everyone is tight in. And if you're on your feet all day, they'll more than likely be tight. And assessment, you'll find out when you do the stretches. So that because the stretches are diagnostic in themselves, if you can't do them, they're pretty much the ones that you need to
You
do.
should be doing. The ones you can't do are the ones you should do.
Basically, yeah. If they're easy, then give them a miss. unless you really like it. But most people haven't got hours each day to stretch. So I usually say, well, just work on the ones that really feel like they're helping you.
Yeah. Is there
And
an ideal amount of time for bearing in mind that we're talking to builders and trades based
yeah,
people? Is there a minimum amount of time and a minimum number of days per week that you should invest in this?
well, yeah. Look, it's a hard one. You know, I would say everyone probably needs to do probably about 6 stretches at a minimum. Um, if they and they would probably be about 5 minutes each.
Mm.
You don't need to do them all at once. You could do 15 minutes in the morning and 15 at night. Um, and you probably need to do that, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
You, it's hard. I get it. The plasterer that just left, he said, "Oh, I haven't got time when I get on site and I've got subbies. They're not going to stand there and stretch for half an hour." Um, and I said, "Well, yeah, I understand that. You know, maybe it's something you need to do together 15 minutes before you start or 15 minutes into your lunch hour." And I know it cuts into things, but if you take a long-term view, you're going to feel much, much better over time. Um, I think it's worth the effort.
It has to be. I mean, I've studied and taught effectiveness and time management for almost 35
Yeah,
years, and I know for a fact that the majority of tradies would waste hours per day because of their ineffectiveness. Some of that
yeah,
ineffectiveness comes from poor decision making because of the stress and so forth. Some of
yeah,
the ineffectiveness can come because they can't do things as quickly and
yeah,
effortlessly as they used to, and things like
yeah,
that. So to me, um, it's a fantastic investment in longevity, a fantastic investment in productivity. You'll feel
yeah,
better,
yeah,
and I know that at least one of our black belt members told me a few weeks ago that they're actually holding stretching classes with their team on site every morning, and the
fantastic.
guys absolutely love it. It's got to
Yeah.
be a good investment.
Oh, look, it is. I mean, it's just so worthwhile, and when you think, if you stick to it for a month, you can feel so much better than you currently do. It's just having the discipline to get started, and once you do, you because you feel so much better, you won't want to stop. It's just getting the initial discipline to do it really. Um, the other thing is, I see so many people who, they're in their 50s and they have been working physical jobs and they're so broken and, they you think about their retirement. I mean, they're hardly going to be able to get around. That's a horrible way to finish your working life and then not be able to do anything for
Mm.
retirement can be 20 or 30 years now. You don't want to end up like that.
Yeah, and I'd expect that because of what you do, you'd see quite a few people like that.
I
And
do.
unfortunately,
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
have a little bit of that won't happen to me syndrome. there's a fair bit of that going around, but I mean, physics
Nothing
are
sure.
physics, and it's going to happen. And
It will. There's
I expect.
nothing sure. Yeah. And, there's a podcast sometimes I listen to, Peter Attia. He's got this idea. He says, I try and imagine myself when I'm 80 and how do I want to feel? And I work back from there and say, well, okay, well, I want to be at 80. I want to be active and healthy and still cycling and doing all this stuff. What do I need to do now to make sure that I can do that when I'm 80? And I think that's a good way of framing it because it gets you going. You've got to start doing it now. You can't wait till you're 79. It's just too late.
Yeah. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for putting the time aside and sharing your knowledge. I would like to perhaps have another conversation with you in the not too distant future, a bit more
Sure.
expansive.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? Like you mentioned, you've got some books which are going to be great resources. I know that you've got an online store, so if someone wants to buy one of those, I was going to call it a torture machine, but I won't. Uh, one of those very, very valuable pleasure machines that you've built out of lovely timber. They can get all of that sort of stuff and a bit of guidance. Where do we go to check it all out?
Just on the StretchFit website. So the website is worldwideweb.stretchfit.studio.
Okay. So not
And
.com, .studio.
no, just .studio. And also, so you can have a look on there. And, if you want books, you can get them on Amazon. But as I said, if you want to, I'm happy to put together an ebook so people can start doing a bit at home. Maybe if people can send you a message about what they want to stretch, I'm happy to put something together.
So the machines that you showed us, are they able to be purchased and sent interstate? Do they come in a kit form? How do they do it?
Yeah, they can. We didn't always sell them privately, but we've just started to. So they come partially assembled, but they're flat packed, and they probably take about half an hour. They're all pre-drilled and everything. It's just a matter of putting them together pretty quickly. So they're flat packed. They come in a box. We've got a manufacturer in Melbourne and in Queensland, so it'll just be a matter of working out which one's the closest, really.
Yeah.
And we're just finishing an app, which is going to be. It's got about really almost 100 stretches on there, so that'll help people. They can either follow it along, or we can do a program up for them of particular, like a playlist, which would be for them specifically for their injuries or whatever it is they wanted to work on.
So just looking at the viewers here, we've got quite a few viewers watching us live, and so I better ask the question because I know, most of them are either builders or carpenters. Do you have very basic instructions that they would be able to follow to put that flat pack together? Because I don't know, they might struggle a little bit.
No, look, if I can do it, anyone can. It takes me a week to put together an IKEA bookshelf, and even I can, and I reckon my stretch station's easier. So anybody will be able to do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
About 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And the other thing to say is we have got studios. I'm in Brisbane, but there is a studio on the Gold Coast. There's one in Melbourne. There's one in Perth, and there's another one maybe coming open in Port Douglas in the new year.
Okay. Are they all part of your business, or are they like franchises of your business, or how's that work?
They're franchises, all licenses. Yeah.
So you're growing. You're planning on a bit of world domination.
Well, we are trying to grow a bit. There's, Stretch Studio is a big business now around in some places in the US and so on, but a lot of them just do one-on-one stretching. And, one of the things that I didn't like about that was it's too expensive. Most people can't pay $150 for a stretch. So the way that we set up this business was that with the equipment, you can come in and join a bigger group and pay, $30 instead of $150, and then you'd be more likely to be able to do it more often, and it's going to be more effective for you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So again, thanks for being with us, Anthony. It's been fantastic. It's fitted right beautifully into our health and wellness week in the ToolShed, but I think it's a conversation that we could be having anytime. So I hope you enjoyed that, folks. We'll be back again with another episode of the ToolShed before you know it. That is it for this episode. We'll talk to you again. Bye for now.
Thanks, Nick.